and welcome to another episode of Just Scare Us Already, the podcast where we discuss horror movies, both old and new, give our opinions, and continue to search for a movie that can scare us. I'm your host, Cheyenne, with my co host, Dave.
Hi, welcome back, everyone.
And if you like what you hear, give us a like and a subscribe and follow our social medias down below. But for now, let's get into it.
Yeah, so as the 2025 film releases begin to ramp up, this weekend, filmgoers were given the new Steven Soderbergh film Presence. So as we continue to dive into the various horror film genres, we will look at the genre paranormal and more specifically the subgenre haunted house. Like the subgenre ghost and spirits, the subgenre haunted house deals with the things that go bump in the night. The line between these two subgenres is very blurred, as we all know ghosts and or spirits are usually what makes a house or location haunted. So for this week's episode, we will review the recently released Presents, as well as talk about three of our favorite haunted house films. So, with that being said, let's dive into it and see if Presence was able to scare us. So, Shai, tell us a little bit about Presence.
So, Presence was released on January 23rd, 2025, directed by Steven Soderbergh, written by David Coop, and starring Kalina Leong, Lucy Liu, Chris Sullivan, and Eddie Madej. The story is told from the point of view of an all seeing presence within a suburban home. A family, dealing with many internal struggles, becomes convinced they are not alone after moving into their new home. Currently, it's sitting with an 87% critic score on Rotten Tomato and a 54% audience score, so very divisive, I would say. What is your opinion on this movie? Which one do you agree more with? Or are you in the middle?
I actually have to go with the audience rating. I really wanted to like this film. From the trailers, it looked very interesting, but unfortunately, Presence was not interesting at all. For a film that was shot in just 3 weeks, it definitely felt rushed
Oh.
and in some ways incomplete. The twist at the end is so subtle that I think a lot of moviegoers probably will miss it. So yeah, what did you think?
Um, I thought I agree with the audience score. I think that it's a very slow movie. I was happy I wasn't dizzy the whole time. It's like we said, it's told from the point of view of the ghost. So you're following a camera that's just going through everything and following these people around. The movements were really smooth. So if you're someone who does not like first person POV in a film, this one I think isn't as jarring as like found footage movies. It's a very smooth dolly on a camera or camera on a dolly, but it's very boring. Every single the only thing that this movie made me leave with is that I don't want to be a ghost because it seems like it would be boring as all heck. It's literally just sitting there watching this day-to-day life happen. It felt like the movie Here that just came out with Tom
Tom
Hanks.
Hanks. Hmm.
Yeah, where it's in the living room and you just see the life going around it. Granted, this one obviously has more of a storyline, a specific storyline that it's trying to tell, but I don't think that it did it well. I thought that the two twists, because I think that there's really two twists in the movie. One of them, sure, I didn't see coming, but like you said, it wasn't well done enough that it would leave you with a lasting like, oh my goodness. And
Hmm.
then secondly, the second one felt so over the top of the spoiler alert, big spoiler alert, but the serial killer thing was so stupid and his acting was so over the top. It felt like such a comic book villain
Hmm.
moment that I couldn't sit with it. I was like, this is stupid. The moment it showed that part of it. Like I wish he was just a creep, just a creepy kid being a creepy kid, not this weird serial killer thing that was happening. But the acting in it overall was good. The only character I felt any sympathy for was the father, to be completely honest. So,
Okay.
all in all, I thought that this movie was what it had an interesting concept of following a ghost the whole time from their point of view, but I don't think it paid off at all. It honestly,
Mhm.
half the time I forgot it was a ghost. I just thought it was a camera.
Yeah.
filming random people doing their random things.
Yeah, I agree that the the film felt very similar to found footage, and the panning camera effect was a lot smoother, like you said, than the overused handheld camera effect that usually leaves a lot of people nauseous. But there were some scenes that were a little dizzying, kind of unsettling, when the camera would pan really fast, or
Mhm.
when it would pan between multiple conversations, so the camera kept moving back and forth, back and forth. So yeah, there were a couple of scenes that I was kind of like, watching with one eye closed. As far as the character development, I felt that it was well done by giving us just a simple glimpse at a family's dynamic. It didn't bother
Mhm.
really trying to go into a whole backstory and building up each character. You kind of, just from the conversations and stuff, you kind of get each character's personality. And I agree,
Mhm.
the father did a really good job. The other characters, as a father, having to deal with teenagers, it's
Great
it
teenagers.
it it frustrated me because, there were a couple of scenes where I'm just like, "That's," "Come on. You're this
Yeah.
is your house. You're the father. You're not
Oh,
gonna
I
let
know.
somebody talk like that in your house, and just kinda nonchalantly. I mean, maybe it's a new parenting style, but yeah, there were scenes I was just like, "Nope. That would never happen."
Yeah,
Mm,
and
mhm,
the trend of the boy mom thing, I don't know if you know what this trend is, but
mm-mm.
it's basically moms who are so in love with their sons that they are in love with their sons,
Really?
and you have this, yeah, and I felt that with Lucy Liu's character, a few times, but it's
Mhm,
specifically one scene. I will say though, I do like that none of them have real character resolution because I
mhm.
felt like that's more realistic with this short of a time span that the movie is covering. That yeah, you wouldn't see characters, a struggling marriage all of a sudden fix itself, and a mother who doesn't give a care about one of her kids suddenly love her kid like no other. So I did like that aspect of it. It wasn't too cheesy with everyone coming together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. In some ways, I felt a little cheated, and I don't wanna give anything away, but, it's
Hmm.
kinda like, okay, you're telling me this side story, but you're not giving me a whole lot of information, so you kind of felt
Yeah.
left in the dark. And I get what you're saying. Sometimes it's not about a resolution or a happy ending or anything like that. It's just, this is something that the family's going through. But I did still feel a little cheated, because it was just like, well, you gave me these details, you made me interested in it, and then you didn't give me anything
Yeah.
else. Yeah, I like the way they did the character development. I totally agree with you. The plot with the uh, boyfriend, or whatever you want to call him, that was out of left field and felt so ridiculously thought through. His dialogue was horrible. I wanted to choke the
Oh,
heck out of
awful. Oh my god.
him.
I don't know any teenager, and I know that there are teenagers out there who go through the melodramatic, I have no control over my life, but no teenager talks like that.
No,
I
no.
was that dramatic kid. I don't no one talks like that.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a script that was written by a bunch of high school kids. Oh, we need to
Trying
make
to
him
think deep.
so tortured and so thought provoking, and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. But overall, like I said, the film left a lot to be desired. Although I liked the method of the character development, the story itself felt incomplete and rushed, and the ending was lackluster. I will say, though, again, that the twist at the end, I think a lot of audience members might not get it, so they'll probably walk away saying that was dumb.
Mhm.
But it worked in a way, but I would not consider Presence a horror film. It felt more like a psychological drama with some supernatural elements. but
Honestly, it
definitely
didn't even
not.
feel like a psychological drama. It just felt like a drama.
Yeah, I guess in a way it did. Yeah, I guess in a
Like
way it
honestly, if you
did.
take away, if you stop paying attention enough to the move,
Hmm.
like to the fact that it's a ghost, it just feels like a camera following a family,
Hmm.
and then it's just a drama,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
majority of the movie. The ghost does maybe like two things that
Yeah,
was ghostly,
yeah, yeah. It
maybe
it
three.
def it definitely didn't feel scary at all. I didn't feel any tension.
Overall, what was your opinion of the presence, which has been
Yeah,
touted as the scariest movie to come around?
yeah. That was definitely taking its liberties with that one. Yeah. Overall, though, I like I said, the film felt rushed and incomplete. It left a lot to be desired. Although I liked the character development, it still had a lackluster ending, but I think a lot of people may miss the twist at the end. At first, I was kind of taken aback by it as well, and then I thought about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would not consider Presence a horror film. It felt more like a psychological drama, with some supernatural elements. So I would
Hmm.
definitely give Presence a thumb down, Kitty.
Same. I'm giving it a hard thumbs down. Don't bother watching it. I don't
Are you
think
are you
it's
hearing that?
no.
It was like a rapid tapping sound.
Don't do that.
No,
Either
serious.
your house or my house is haunted, and I don't need that.
It was like a rapid tapping sound.
I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
Maybe it was my air conditioning, but
Oh,
anyways,
okay.
I give it a thumbs down. I don't think that the movie is even worth a watch on streaming. I really don't think that there's any point to this movie. It just is an interesting family drama. Would have been fine being just a family drama, I guess. Like no ghost in it whatsoever because I felt like that didn't add anything. The family didn't seem affected by the ghost. They seemed to genuinely not even be that caring about it after a
Hmm.
minute, after one person said, "No, it's all good. It's a
Yeah.
chill ghost." And they were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, sick." Like, so I definitely think it's not worth the watch. But since we had one bad haunted house, that movie that I wouldn't even really consider a haunted house movie, let's talk about our top haunted house movies.
So for me, again, I think when it comes to ghosts and spirits versus haunted house, it's kind of a thin line because
Mm-hmm.
like I said earlier, it takes a ghost or a spirit to make a haunted house. So um, I tried to focus on films that involve the house being haunted and not a spirit or ghost like following someone to the house or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
like
for
Paranormal Activity, for
Right.
instance.
Right, exactly. So for me, my number 3 is 2000's What Lies Beneath, starring Harrison Ford and Michelle Pfeiffer and directed by Robert Zemeckis. So the story revolves around Norman Spencer, a university research scientist who is growing more and more concerned about his wife Claire, a retired concert cellist who was involved in a auto accident a year prior and who has just recently sent her daughter Caitlin off to college. Now Claire reports hearing voices and witnessing eerie occurrences in and around their lakeside house, including seeing a face of a young woman in the water. Her fear increases. Claire thinks that she's going out of her mind. But as she moves closer to the truth, it becomes clear that this spirit will not be dismissed and has come back for Dr. Spencer and his beautiful wife. This can be watched on the streaming platform Paramount Plus on Apple TV channel. So this movie didn't do well in the box office. The critics kind of cut it up because it was one of those mainstream movies starring two very popular
Yeah.
stars and directed by very popular directors. So I think people were expecting more than just your typical ghost movie, ghost story. But I
Mm-hmm.
still think it works. It still works as a good scare. Twist or the outcome, it's pretty predictable from the start. But getting to that point, it's worth the watch. So again, I like this movie. It's not super scary or horrible. It's more of a thriller with a ghost
Hmm.
story twist to it, but I still liked it a lot. I enjoy watching it.
That's good to know. I haven't watched that one,
Okay.
so I have to get around to it. When you mentioned it, I was thinking of What Lies Below, which is
Oh,
not
okay.
a good movie.
No.
So What Lies Beneath, I'll keep that in mind.
Okay.
My number three, and this one's a bit of a cheat. I'll admit that one right off the bat. It's The
Okay.
Innocents from 1961, directed by Jack Clayton, starring Deborah Kerr, Martin Steffens, and Pamela Franklin. Following a young governess for two children who becomes convinced that the house and grounds are haunted by the late teacher and governess before her. I say this is a cheat because it's based off The Turning of the Screw by Henry James, which is a novella, which also inspired The Haunting of Bly Manor by Mike Flanagan, which is a miniseries on Netflix that I adore so much, but I didn't put on this list because it's a mini series and we don't do mini
Mhm.
series on this channel. Even though I would love to do an episode of mini series because I love The Haunting of Bly Manor. It is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful retelling of this story. But in a movie form, I had to kind of cheat a little bit to choose one that I really liked. But The Innocents follows the exact same storyline. It has the same beats as that miniseries, just told more concisely. Like I said, it's from 1961, so it's much more of an older film. You can feel the old acting in it, the very dramatic way that all these actors react to everything.
Mhm.
The ghosts don't look that ghostly, they look like people in the distance. So, but I thought that overall it's a really interesting story. It This one I thought was well done because it never fully says if they're ghosts or not. So the whole time you're sitting there thinking that this woman is just going absolutely crazy, seeing things that no one else is seeing, young children who are acting out of age. Which, if you read the novella or you watch the TV series, you understand a bit more of what was actually happening, which spoiler if you plan to watch Mike Flanagan's Haunting of Bly Manor, but the children are actually being possessed by these ghosts. However, in The Innocents, it never fully says whether or not that is true. And the ending of this movie really shocked me. I did not see the ending coming at all for how this one went versus the other ones that I've watched of the same base story of the turning of the screws. But I
Mhm.
think that honestly, for 1961 movie, this one kept my attention the whole time. I thought it was really well done. And the acting in it was good. Deborah Kerr did a great job. Martin Stevens, who is in The Village of the Damned, one of the top kids in that movie, he does a great job in this one as well. He plays a lot older than he is, really, really well. And then Pamela Franklin, who has gone on to do a ton of movies in her life, including something in 2016 recently. She did phenomenal at her young age. All the young actors in this were much better than young actors nowadays. But this one you can't find on streaming. I did have to get it from a library, so keep that in mind. But I think it's well worth the watch.
Okay. Yeah, I've never seen that one, but I think that's probably the oldest film you've ever reviewed.
Oldest one I've ever had on here.
Yeah,
Probably the oldest one
definitely.
I'll ever have on it going forward.
You never count the old ones out.
That's true. It was good. I did try watching another old one. I will say it was "Don't Look Now" with Michael Caine.
Okay.
Not good. Dishonorable mention. Not good movie.
All
5 minute
right.
sex scene in it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So my number two is
Hmm.
2012 Sinister, starring
What's that?
Ethan Hawke and Juliette Rylance, and directed by Scott Dickerson. So the film is about this true crime writer, Alice Ellison Oswald, and he's in a slump. He hasn't had a bestseller in more than 10 years and is becoming increasingly desperate for a hit. So he decides to move his family into a house where a horrific crime took place earlier. And unfortunately, his family is unaware of this. He begins to begin researching the crime in hopes of writing a book about it until one night he finds a box of home films in the attic. After watching them, it becomes increasingly evident that the old film footage and other clues hint at the presence of a supernatural force. Ellison learns quickly that he's living in a house that may be fatal for him and his family. This can be watched on the streaming platform Max. This movie, I love this movie. I know some people might say, is it really a haunted house? And technically, it is because they move into the house. It's not a spirit
Hmm.
that followed them to the house. So when they moved in and he finds the films, that's where he becomes attached to this supernatural presence that has been killing numerous families. The
Hmm.
movie has to me has a great sense of tension. I have to give it some original thought to the different killings. It's kind of like, wow, that's pretty
Uh-huh.
that's pretty messed
There's
up.
some good
So
ones.
yeah, there are some good ones, and I enjoyed Sinister 2 as well. So again, it's not a great movie, but it's definitely a good movie. Good scares, very creepy tension. The ending is your type of ending.
Very much
so
so.
uh, so yeah, definitely a good watch. So for those of you who have never watched Sinister or Sinister 2, I definitely suggest watching them. They're really good movies. Watch them in the dark.
I agree. They're very good. I thought that it's well done. The only downfall I give it is the design of the big baddie.
Mm.
I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, I mean,
But
you don't
great
you don't see
choice.
too much of him, so that's the good thing.
Hmm.
It's not like it or any of the other horror monster guys that you see throughout the movie. This
The
one you
whole
just see
time.
glimpses of them and stuff. So yeah, I think that works.
Good choice. Well, my number two is Crimson Peak from 2015. This one was directed by Guillermo del Toro, which I did not know, starring Mia Wasikowska, Jessica Chastain, and Tom Hiddleston. It follows an aspiring author who is desperate to write her own ghost story, hating the fact that in this time, people expect women to only write love stories, get married, and have children. However, she then falls in love with a mysterious outsider, falling into the trap that she has so desperately tried to avoid. Going to his rundown home at Crimson Peak, she is haunted by the ghost of not only her own past, but his past as well. Can she survive the ghost and an evil sister? So I very much like an old style because I like the gothicness of ghosts and haunted houses, I think. So this one, the ghost design in it, although a little bit heavy on the CGI. You can tell it's definitely from the 2000, early 2000s, 2015. Um, it still, I think that the designs looked really cool. They were like a mix of skeletal and humanoid, and some were like really effed up looking. So I thought that that was cool. But the main crux of the story is this, I guess you could say, a love story between Mia and Tom Hiddleston's characters. It's very cute. It's well done. I thought that the chemistry at the beginning was very believable. And then going into this haunted house and having all these mysteries coming out slowly, I thought was well done. Even though I've seen this movie before, I've loved this movie. I still found myself forgetting some of the twists in it and going, "Oh, that's kind of cool," when the mystery would come back around. I would say though that the last twist of the big movie is a little bit stupid in my opinion and a little overdone, but I still didn't mind it for what the story was and for what the overall message of the story was. I thought that it worked, but it was just a touch, I don't know, outplayed, I guess. If you ever seen Flowers in the Attic, that twist in that one can tell you what the twist in this one is.
Mhm.
But overall, I like this movie. I think that they handle the ghosts very well. They're not a side plot in the whole story, but they're not the main crux of the entirety of it. And when you get to see them, I think that they're creepy enough that it could freak out some people who aren't used to this kind. Again, this is one that you can't find on streaming services, sadly. I had to rent it from Amazon. But if you get a chance to watch it or you already own it, I think it's very much worth another watch. I think it still holds up pretty well.
All right. Yeah, that's a good choice. I've seen that film probably probably almost 10 years ago. Yeah, so it's definitely not fresh in my mind. But yeah, definitely a decent watch.
And a stacked cast.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. All right, so for me, my number one, and this movie's been on several of my lists, and always will be. But my number one is 2012's, or I'm sorry, 2013's The Conjuring, starring
Of
Vera
course.
Farmiga, Patrick Wilson,
We'll
and
never get it.
I broke it down, so it's Farmiga for me. Patrick Wilson and Lily Taylor, and directed by James Wan. So this film, of course, in 1971, Carolyn and Roger Perone moved their family into a dilapidated, secluded farmhouse. Shortly after moving in, strange things begin to happen around the house and quickly escalate into nightmarish terror. In desperation, Carolyn contacts the noted paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren to come out and examine the house. The Warrens discover the house is steeped in a satanic haunting that is now targeting the Perone family wherever they go. To stop the evil, the Warrens will have to call upon all their skills and spiritual strength to defeat this menace at its source that threatens to destroy everyone involved. This can be rented or purchased on Fandango at Home, Apple TV, or Google Play. I did not find it on any of the normal streaming channels, so you'll have to rent or purchase it. But again, love this movie. I always considered this the best of the Conjuring universe.
Hmm.
Unlike Conjuring 2, which I had mentioned in our Ghosts and Spirits, this one was more about the house itself, and then it evolved into the spirit that was haunting and eventually possesses the mother. Love this movie, love the tension in it, the clapping game. I love that scene. There are just so many parts in this movie that were just like, whoa, you didn't see that coming, and it never gets old. I've watched it so many times. I watch it every Halloween. It's just it never gets old. Love this movie. I think it's a great haunted house type film. It kind of plays a little like the Amityville Horror. A family moves in,
Hmm.
and ghost basically tries to chase them out. But in this case, the spirit wants to possess the mom and kill the family. So a little different than Amityville Horror. It wasn't just get out. It's like I'm gonna kill you all. So, but yeah, love this movie. Can't say enough about it. Like I said, it's for rent or purchase, so it wouldn't be a bad purchase to have it and own it. It's
No.
great, a great movie.
Are you excited for the TV series coming out soon?
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely thrilled about that. And I know when we did our Conjuring universe, I had mentioned that there was some talk years ago that they were thinking about doing a series that would focus on the various collected possessed items that is in the Warrens artifact room. So I'm
Hmm.
definitely interested to see how that goes, and I'm looking forward to the new movie, The Conjuring Last Rite. I definitely want to see where they're going to go with this, especially now that they're bringing in Vera's sister from the Nun
Yes.
series. So that ought to be interesting.
They better be related. That's all I'm saying. But, anyways, going to my number one, and we had mentioned this one as an honorable mention in our Ghost and Spirits episode, but The Others from 2001, directed by Alejandro Amenbar, and starring Nicole Kidman, Fionnuala Flanagan, and Alakina Mann. The movie is set in 1945, immediately following the end of the Second World War. A woman who lives with her two photosensitive children in her darkened old family estate in the Channel Islands becomes convinced that the home is haunted. This movie is one of my absolute favorite horror movies and haunted movies. I think that this one is so cleverly done. Even watching it a second time, you pick up more on what the twist is at the end when you know it. And the small little nuances that they leave throughout the movie is so cool and is so smart that I know the first time I watched it, I was shocked. I was flabbergasted by the twist in this one. And honestly, it has two reveals in it. The first one I think is well done in terms of like a haunted house type of movie where you're like, oh, what a shocker, these ghosts type of thing. And then
Hmm.
the second reveal is much more of a sad, slow, you just kind of sit with it, just like the characters do, and you feel like this weight, I guess you could say. But I think that it's so good. And the haunting parts of the movie, the scary parts of the movie, are so good. I still find one of the scenes so creepy. I think it's in the trailer, so you'll probably see it. But when the little girl is playing with her little puppet in the dark
Hmm.
and the mom goes over and it's not her daughter, so good. Watching it numerous times, it's still such a creepy little scene. And the acting in it's great. Nicole Kidman obviously does a phenomenal job. The children do a good job. I think that the little girl, Alakina Man, does a slightly better job than the boy, but her character had a lot more to it, a lot more of an active role. So
Hmm.
I don't know if that played much more of a part to it, but she did a great job. This movie, I think, is so worth the watch. It's on AMC Plus, but if you ever get a chance to rent it or get it from like a library, I think that it's maybe a little slow in comparison to like horror movies like The Conjuring and Sinister, but the scenes that do have the scares in it, I think, are well done enough to keep your attention, and it's well worth to get to the ending where that twist is because it's chef's kiss. But so
Yeah,
that's my top. Those are my top
yeah,
three.
yeah. That's
Very
a
much
that,
set in old homes where women only wear dresses. I don't know why. I love
right.
a good old school haunting.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick. Like you said, it was on our honorable mention with Ghost and Spirits, and yeah, I like that movie a lot. It is a slow burn, so there aren't a whole lot of jump scares or anything like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely worth the watch.
So, do you have any honorable mentions for our haunted house episode? I don't know how many movies you watch when we do these, but I watch like 10 to 13.
Yeah, I watch quite a few. Some I
Yeah.
make it through, some I
Turned off
don't.
quickly.
Yeah. I did have a couple of honorable mentions, but after I thought about them, I'm like, well, are they really haunted house stories or are they more psychological
Well, which ones
thrillers?
are they? Because mine, I have two haunted house movies. One is honorable. I'll go ahead and give them. Mine is
Okay.
His House, which can be found on Netflix. I thought that was
Okay.
a really good one. It's much more of a psychological thriller, but the house itself is haunted. I think that this one's worth the watch. It's about an immigrant family who comes from Africa to England, are dealing with the fact that they put in like this really not great home, and this guy is determined to make this home livable, but he's haunted with the past of how he got to England, and it's I think it's well done. And my second one is Oculus, directed by Mike Flanagan, of course.
Okay.
And this one's on my list because it's not a haunted house; it's a haunted mirror. So
Hmm.
I didn't think that it was worth putting on haunted house, but it's a phenomenal movie. So that's why I put those. So if you want to mention yours that are psychological thrillers, go ahead.
Yeah. So my first one would be Silent House, the U.S. remake starring Elizabeth Olsen.
It's a
That one,
remake.
yeah, it's actually a remake.
Oh,
So yeah, that one is again, it starts off and feels a lot like the house is haunted. There's some spirit in there, and then you get to the twist where it kind of turns into more of a psychological thriller. But
mm-hmm.
it's about a young lady, her father and her uncle. They're um, rehabbing their old lake house to sell it, and eventually, um, the the girl starts to notice there's something in the house, and the movie is basically all about her running around the house trying to get away from whatever's in there. And then, like I said, then we get to the twist, and it turns more to a psychological thriller. But it at the beginning, the first, I'd say, 80% of the movie feels more like a
Yeah,
haunted house kind of thing. So that's why that one was on my list. And the other one would be Marrowbone. Um, that
good
one,
movie.
I again starts off as a very potential haunted house kind of film. But then again, the twist evolves into more of a psychological thriller. But both films I think worked well in the beginning as a haunted house tale, but unfortunately
Mhm.
turned more into a psychological thriller than a haunted house.
I would agree. Those are good ones, though. Well, if we ever do a psychological thriller episode, we'll go more into depth on some of these ones. With all the movies coming out, who knows? We probably will.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've definitely got a lot of different genres and subgenres to devil into. So, uh, I probably used that word wrong.
I think you mean delve into, but devil
Delve.
into it makes sense for the podcast.
There you go. Delve into. But devil, hey, we do a lot of him too. So
Exactly. Oh, we haven't done a devil episode though.
no, not yet.
But anyways, as we continue to explore all these subgenres and genres of horror, we will continue to find things that maybe will scare us. Hopefully, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, bye, everyone.